Welcome to Lesbian Visibility Week 2023. We are kicking off with a really important conversation, and as you can see, I'm joined by some iconic lesbians. My name's Char Bailey. I use she and her pronouns, so get comfortable, grab a drink, and let's get into it. I'm going to ask my guests to introduce themselves, although they are people who need absolutely no introduction. And I'm going to start with my boss, the iconic Linda Riley. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, thanks very much for that lovely introduction, Shah. So my name is Linda Riley. I identify as she, her. I'm the publisher of Diva magazine, and I'm also the founder of Lesbian Visibility Week.
Woohoo, and you are an icon. I can't wait to pick your brain some more. I'm going to move on to Nancy Kelly, the iconic CEO of Stonewall. How are you? Tell us who you are and a little bit about what you do.
So I'm Nancy, my pronouns are she and her. I am apparently the CEO of Stonewall and Iconic. Thank you, Shah. And I'm also a mum of 2 little boys, 2 giant snails, lizards, and about 10 fish. Oh, and 2 dogs.
Wow. That kind of made me want to come round your house. But before we get on to perhaps me getting an invite, we're going to introduce our next guest. It's a lovely Arlene. Do you want to introduce yourself, your pronouns, and a little bit about where you're from and what you do?
Sure. I'm Arlene McDermott, and I am with the London Stock Exchange Group. I work as head of business management in the legal and compliance function, and I'm also chief of staff to our general counsel, and that's my day job. And the other side of what I do is I'm also global co-lead for our LGBTQ plus network, LSEC Pride. And as we're on it, I have a daughter and a lovely partner and a dog called Addie. There we are. Bring in the animals.
Lovely. A gay job, a day job, and lots of animals. Perfect. I'm going to kick off with the first question. I'm going to direct it straight at Linda as one of the founders of Lesbian Visibility Week. Why do we have Lesbian Visibility Week?
Yeah, well, we have Lesbian Visibility Week because, as you said on the packet, we need lesbians, we need visibility, and we need it for a week. So that's why we have it. But there's been a lot of issues for the L over the years in the LGBTQI community, and I just thought it was really important that we have more going on to see the positive side of the word lesbian, and basically to shout it with pride. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that you've said there is about being proud, and so many lesbians have struggled to find proud and to be out in so many different areas. We've got 2 out proud mums on the call, well, 3 actually, but you've mentioned your parents and your partners. I'm going to start with you, Nancy. What does it mean to you to say, I'm a proud lesbian, and have you always been proud of your identity?
Oh God, that's a great question. So what it means, so yes, I've always been proud of my identity. I was a bit of a late bloomer. I came out relatively late in my 20s. But I've always been really proud to be exactly who I am, and being a lesbian is totally at the heart of that. I'm not, a person that works for charities who happens to be a lesbian. I'm not a mum who happens to be a lesbian. I am a lesbian person who works for charities, and I am a lesbian mum. Do you know what I mean? It's really core to my identity. I think that, just to pick up what Linda has said, lesbians are often kind of pushed to the back of the bus within the LGBTQ plus movement at times, pushed to the back of the bus within the feminist movement, actually, kind of let the more palatable women go to the front. And that means that a lot of us grow up without any role models. I can't think of any adult lesbians I knew when I was a teenager. And so kind of being out and proud and being visible is part of kind of reclaiming our space, and also making it easier, I think, for other women to claim their space and to kind of see a path in front of them.
Wow. Thank you for saying that, because I think as somebody who's a younger lesbian or just coming up, it's been something that's been really inspiring for me to actually be able to have people like Linda and yourselves in my life to look to be inspired. Arlene, I saw you nodding along to a lot of what Nancy's just been saying. Do you agree with what she's saying? And have you had the same experience? Have you always been proud, or has it been a little bit different for you?
Yeah, I really agree. I mean, I mean, who would disagree with the fabulous Nancy Kelly or the awesome Linda Riley? But I mean, just look at this screen. You know, why wouldn't you be proud in the company of such amazing women? And yeah, I've always been proud. I mean, you know, I was I grew up in Ireland, and it was illegal to be gay. You know, when I was coming out. And like you say, it's a huge part of my identity, and I've never hidden away from it. And I think, you know, on the point of visibility, I think we see women, you know, having barriers in life generally, exactly what, you know, Nancy and Linda have said. And I think it's really important that we don't, you know, we don't feel like, and being gay or being a lesbian is another barrier. It shouldn't be, and that's why visibility is just so important. Yeah, I'm you know, I love, you know, carrying the flag. I think it's really, really important. And I think visibility for lesbians right now is immensely important. It's really, really key. You know, and you know, we're going after gender equality in the workplace, which is like a really big thing for me. And you know, and we do see that there are less women out in the workplace than there are men. You know, less bi people, you know, as well. So I think it's really, really important that we remain visible, and those of us that are proud, that we talk about it. You know, we can't assume that people just assume, right? We have to talk about it and stay very, very loud, right?
Absolutely. And on the topic of being loud and being visible, I don't know if you've all had an opportunity to look into the Kantar and Diva survey that has just been done. Based on that survey, 49% of boomers, I hate to use the term boomers, but I'm saying it, your boomers identified as lesbian, and only 24% of Gen Z, which for me was like a massive disparity. It's a huge difference in that number. I'm going to come to you, Linda. Why do you think that fewer queer women are taking up that term lesbian and calling themselves lesbians?
You see, I think you've just answered that in the question as well, Char, when you said, why do I think fewer queer women not calling themselves lesbians? It's like many people are reclaiming the word queer. For example, my generation, when we grew up, the word queer was really triggering, but I'm very much of the mindset, you know, of reclaiming that word. So I totally understand. But I think it's a question of people like are really using the word queer and really more fluid. But the other point that I was going to make is, and another reason why Lesbian Visibility Week is so important, is that over the years there's been a lot of negative connotation around the word lesbian, and I actually think that Lesbian Visibility Week is helping to overcome that. You know, I think it's really important that we talk about the strapline of Lesbian Visibility Week, and to make it clear that it's an inclusive week for all LGBTQIA women and the non-binary community. And it's really about, I think, that what Lesbian Visibility Week is doing in a really good, positive way, because I actually think that percentage of 24% is a lot higher than it would have been maybe a few years ago. I think more and more people are now using the word lesbian again, you know, so I do think there's a resurgence of the word lesbian. I hope I've answered that in the roundabout way.
You have, and as a proud lesbian, can I have your hat that says lesbian power on it? I'm asking you live now, kind of everyone.
Yeah, I don't have it here now, but I shall be wearing it all throughout the week. It's my favourite hat.
Yes. On the topic of being out, being positive and being proud, if you could all tell me in one sentence, and remember this is a family show, can you tell me what is the best thing about being a lesbian? I'm going to come to you first, Nancy.
Okay, I'm going to keep it completely PG. It's all the lesbians, actually. Like, yeah. I really love, and that's connected to being visible, because, you know, if you're visible, then you get the nod from other lesbians, and then you know another lesbian, and there you go, you're off to the races. But I love so much about lesbian community, I've got like huge affection for things like our competency fetish. I think lesbians really like people that are good at things. I really like people that are good at things. You know, that sense of humor that we have about ourselves and each other, that sense of solidarity that we have, and just the incredible variety of women that I've met over the years, living lives so different from each other, lives so different from mine, that I've been able to be friends with, or just share an interesting conversation with, go on a date with. So I think the best thing about being a lesbian is other lesbians, and having the chance to meet them and know them and learn about them, and kind of admire their matching fleeces.
Admire their matching fleeces as we go for a walk on a Sunday afternoon with a dog up a mountain. Excellent. Arlene, what's your favourite thing about being a lesbian?
Oh, I'm so glad you went to Nancy first. I suppose when I think about it, you know, I just think, oh, it's just that thing of being in the company of, you know, of women who really know what they're about. You know, it takes a lot, as you know, it takes a lot for a woman to step up and say, this is me. You might not like it, but there we are, right? And to be among a group of women who have done that, there's something really incredibly powerful about that, you know. I just love nothing more than sitting around a dinner table with a group of lesbians who, and you all know the experiences that you've all been through from childhood through to now, and you have this common life experience, you know, and it's really, really special. It's really special, you know. It's a really special group of people to belong to. Yeah, so it's that lovely comfort that I get from it, is what I really love about it.
If I wasn't already a lesbian, I would definitely be sold right now, if it were a choice. And Linda, what's your favourite
thing? If you've left me last here, I don't have a lot to say, because I think everybody has said it all, but I echo all your sentiments. But for me right now as well, what is good is just the freedom to be able to say I'm a lesbian as well. You know, I've just come back from Florida, which I'm going to be talking a lot of, and we're, you know, our rights, our basic rights, you know, they don't say gay bill, you know, are being rescinded. So I'm just happy to have the freedom, and I just want everybody else to be able to have that freedom, to be able to say, you know, I am a lesbian.
Wow. And I'm going to stick with you actually, Linda, because this is something that we've talked about behind the scenes quite a lot, but bringing it to the forefront. You know, there's this idea of how lesbians are represented in the media. I grew up thinking that lesbianism was something perhaps a little bit taboo, a little bit risque, maybe even a little bit dirty. So, Linda, you are huge in the media. How does media representation impact lesbian visibility?
Well, it impacts it in quite a way. And as you say, I mean, there was a lot of negative stereotypes through mainstream media. When you say media, we're obviously not talking about diva, so I call it mainstream, through TV. And you know, it was very, very negative. But I think more and more nowadays we're seeing, like through shows like Heartstopper, more positive lesbian role models. And I think the more that we all kind of are out and proud, people are actually seeing. I mean, the ideal stereotype from previous was, you know, a butch, masculine presenting lesbian who was together with a feminine lesbian, and kind of imitating lesbian heterosexual lifestyles. And but I think we're moving away from that. And there's not to say that people that are still living like that way, that's all fine. I mean, everybody just needs to be who they want to be. And I think it's really important that the more and more people who are coming out, you know, we have Emily Sandé came out last year, Dame Kelly Holmes, you know, lots of big actors in the USA in particular. The more people are coming out, the more we're accepting in mainstream that there isn't just one type of lesbian with a negative stereotype. And I think it's making it easier for people to come out.
And you've really done me a massive favour there, Linda, because you've touched on something that's really important to me, and this idea of intersectionality within the lesbian community. I'm a black autistic lesbian from Birmingham, so looking into the world, I didn't see anyone who really looked like me. So I'm going to come to you, Nancy, as somebody who's a caretaker of lots of LGBTQ plus people. How can we ensure that other lesbians aren't left out of the conversation? So women of colour, lesbians with disabilities, how can they be included in this conversation? Oh, I think you've gone on mute there, Nancy.
Sorry, I'm not quite a boomer, actually. I'm Generation X, but I'm old enough to be crap at technology, Char. So I think there's a couple of things. I think firstly, you've got to start from the perspective that discrimination and prejudice exists inside the lesbian community. You know, we're not some kind of perfect, righteous group. So you have to start from the perspective of thinking about your own assumptions, what you visualize when you think about the word lesbian, your own kind of actions. And we've all got a part to play in that. I think there's a bit of a tendency in the lesbian community sometimes to think we're all really nice and therefore we're all really righteous and inclusive and we don't have to think about that. That's definitely not right. We need to do as much work as any community does to make sure that we're challenging our own kind of prejudices, biases, etc. I think the other things for me are about making sure that there is a lot of space within lesbian community, within the wider LGBTQ plus community, that really focuses on centering the experiences of lesbians that have often been pushed to the margins, whether it's women of colour, women with disabilities, you know, women who've got a particular migration history, etc., and kind of uplifting those spaces, promoting those spaces, and promoting kind of all of those women to take centre stage within our community. I think that is really, really important. And then I think finally, often I think women who exist at those intersections feel like they're expected to choose between their identities. So kind of, do you come into this space using your example as a black woman or as an autistic person or as will you come into this space as all of those things? And so I think that being solidaristic, you know, caring and showing up for the kind of disabled people's rights movement, caring and showing up for racial justice, caring and showing up for all of the kind of different ways in which we can be pushed down in life or uplifted in life makes it easier for all women to really shine within the lesbian community, because they're not being expected to check part of who they are at the door, and they're not being expected to tolerate people who don't show up and who don't care for other aspects of who they are.
Amazing. And I think everyone in the room is on the edge of their seat listening to you, because everything you've said there has really ticked all boxes. In fact, I'm going to move straight on to the next question, because I think you've really covered everything there. And for those of you who are watching this online and who are at home, we will be providing resources at the end of this that you can click on to find out how you can be better supportive to our community or be a part of it. Arlene, I'm going to come to you, because sticking with this theme of solidarity and taking care of our community, the children's charity Just Like Us released a report recently, and within that report it said that lesbians are the most supportive members of the community when it comes to being trans allies. How do you feel about that, and why do you think that is?
How do I feel about it? You know, look, I feel like it's really heartbreaking for the trans community, where, you know, where we're seeing things moving. I mean, you know, I genuinely feel that it affects all of us, you know, and we need to see it as affecting all of us. Why do I think lesbians are more supportive? I don't know that I know the answer to that. I just know that I am. And I think we do have, you know, somewhat of a shared experience in marginalization, in, you know, and I think that when you've got that kind of lived experience that's common, obviously you empathize and you move more toward people. who are, you know, in the middle of suffering in the same way that either we have a history of or that we're going through. The trans community and what's happening, and, you know, going back to the points around media, is it's devastating. You know, it really, really is. You know, we've talked about, you know, our children. I don't want my children growing up in a world that legislates to marginalize sectors of our society, that creates policies that exclude people. You know, no matter what we have that we deal with in terms of discrimination in society, when discrimination is being legislated, I think that's devastating. And it genuinely, you know, I mean, these are my friends. These are all of our friends, you know, who are going through this, and it's terrifying. So, I'm, you know, look, in on the one hand, I'm glad to hear. I actually do believe that you know, our community, the LGBTQ plus community, is absolutely with our trans siblings. You know, we're here to support them, and you know, and if we're not, we need to get on board with that because they need us.
Amazing. And that's something that I've really been inspired to see from people in our community. In fact, especially you, Linda, being, you know, the incredible leader that you are at DIVA, working for the magazine and seeing how inclusive we are and how much you really push to ensure that all women, all queer women, all people, all members of the community are celebrated, their voices are amplified, and they feel safe with us. But I'm wondering, just to kind of turn that on its head, Linda, how can people be better allies to us as lesbians?
How can people be better allies to us? I mean, there's many ways, but just for example, if we go to Lesbian Visibility Week, don't feel that you can't shout about it and support it because you're not labelled as a lesbian or you're not part of the lesbian community. So really, you know, in the same way as I would be an ally to the trans community or people of colour, you know, I would want people to be that kind of ally to the lesbian community, you know. So there's, you know, to step up, use your platform to amplify our voices, you know, and to help us not be marginalised in the LGBTQI community.
I'm going to say that again, step up, use your platform to amplify our voices. Hashtag. I'm going to round this off, and I'd like to finish on a little bit of a light one. So I'm going to give you sort of, you know, a couple of seconds to think as I read out this question. But there are so many myths and rumours about lesbians. I have made some up, absolutely, and definitely believed many of them. But what's the most ridiculous myth or rumour that you've heard about lesbians, and what's the truth? And I'm going to start with, oh, let's see who looks just about ready. I'm going to start with you, boss. I'm going to come to you, Linda. What's the most ridiculous myth about lesbians, and what's the truth?
Oh God, that's a hard one. It gives everybody else a time to think. But I'd say off the top of my head, a myth is that you can't go out on the LGBTQI scene without bumping into an ex-girlfriend. Myth or truth?
Myth or truth? Depends who you are. Nancy, I'm going to come to you.
I think one of the most ridiculous myths about lesbians is the idea that we don't like men. I mean, obviously some lesbians don't like men, some men don't like men, but it's really, really baked into prejudice against lesbians, the idea that we're like man haters. People quite often make that assumption. And the truth is, some of us really, really like men. I really, really like men. I've got 2 sons. I think they're great. I just don't fancy them.
Brilliant. And Arlene, last but no means least.
I think Nancy slightly stole mine there. I think it's the men hating thing, or the fact that you must have had a bad relationship with your father and all this kind of nonsense. The other one, though, that Linda touched on earlier was the, who wears the trousers in the relationship. This kind of myth that there is a stereotypical heteronormative sort of situation going on in your household, which, you know, I don't think is even true for heteronormative couples anymore, even as well. But this idea that there's a, you know, it's almost like trying to fit us into some sort of a box when actually there really isn't one in the first place. That's the one that I kind of get. I think that is just, yeah, I'm constantly saying, no, not really like that.
I love that. And I think that's the perfect way to finish this conversation about why is lesbian visibility important. There is no one way to be a lesbian. There is no right or wrong way. And there is no box, and you don't have to fit into it. We're going to be having these conversations all week long with a whole host of incredible lesbians and queer women from all around the globe. Stay tuned with Diva, have your own celebrations, and happy, happy Lesbian Visibility Week. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, Char. Thanks, Nancy.